Hi, and welcome to Book Nook. I'm Lynn Kessler with Read Aloud West Virginia. Thank you for joining us today. We're so happy you're here to read some books with us. Also joining us today is Joni Deutsch with West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. And I will let you list your responsibilities and job duties at public broadcasting because they are many.
Yes. I'll start. I am assistant producer for Mountain Stage with Larry Gross, which is one of the longest running live performance radio shows on National Public Radio, NPR, and it's produced here in Charleston, West Virginia.
Yes.
I am also an on-air board operator at West Virginia Public Broadcasting. I'm host of A Change of Tune, which is an indie alternative music program heard Saturday nights on West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Excellent.
I'm getting into my radio voice now.
Yes,
And,
really good show.
Yes, and I also help with NPR Generation Listen through the station, which is an initiative to get young people interested and involved in public radio.
Yes.
So my life is radio and music.
Yes.
And I love it.
That sounds really like a wonderful life,
Yeah.
I have to say. And we're so happy. You know, we've heard a lot of talk lately about young people in West Virginia and why people stay and why people leave, and I think you're a wonderful example of what we need in West Virginia and the type of people we want to keep, and I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks.
And also glad you're here on Book Nook today.
Yes.
So we know you love music and public radio, and what role did reading play in this development into who you are today?
Oh gosh, huge role. Growing up, my mom would take me to the library, the Elk Valley Library, probably every day, if not every other day. We'd find like stacks of books. Summer programs, we would go and we do, all the little activities, and she would challenge me to read 100 books by the end of the summer, and I'd read 200 to prove her wrong. I learned through Read Aloud and through going to the library, I learned how to have a voice, how to read aloud, how to, be passionate about subjects that maybe I didn't really know much about, but I loved learning about. And also it was nice connecting with my mom during those times where she would read to me at night before I'd go to bed.
Yeah.
And so we'd pick out a book the day before, the day of, and then we'd bring it home, and then that night she'd read me a chapter, and then I'd force her to read me a second chapter, and then maybe a third chapter, and then it's midnight and she would go to bed. And it was really good childhood, and most of the reason why I'm in my current job is because of me learning how to be a better writer, or be a better, communication person, and the library definitely had a role to play in that in books.
Yeah, and you we've been talking at Read Aloud about reconnecting with Read Aloud babies, who are people who had certified Read Aloud volunteers back when they were kids in the classroom, and you are a genuine Read Aloud baby.
Yep.
So that's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, we would. Was it weekly that they would come in?
Yeah, it typically is.
They would come in and they would read the chapter books. And I remember, there's certain voices you love more than others. Like you were so excited when someone would come in because you knew they could read like no other. But yeah, those are so great. I love those moments because it was so cool to have someone come in and just take you away from math and science and everything else, just to put you back into the world that you almost forgot about, but it was nice to get your feet wet into. But I think Harry Potter was one of the first ones, one of the major ones that they did chapter by chapter.
Oh, okay.
And that was, it was definitely when I was in grade school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love those moments.
People are surprised at how early you can introduce kids to chapter books, especially if you're taking a chapter at a time, or like you were saying, your mother read to you in the evenings. And that's one of our big emphasis points in our public education program, trying to encourage parents. We do workshops with parents and try to encourage them to do that with their kids, because just like you said, you have all of these memories now, and this bond has been formed between you and your mother in the book, and it's all positive feelings, and good associations.
Yeah.
And
It could be scary. I mean, it is more print than maybe pictures, but if you have someone that can actually make the words come to life for you, make those pictures in your head, then it's all the worthwhile.
And that's why we for anyone who's going to be a certified volunteer for Read Aloud, we require an hour and a half training.
Yeah.
And people say, well, I know how to read. I don't need to come be trained to read. But we call it an orientation because that's really more appropriate. And we just talk to people about, how important it is to read to kids, for one thing, and the true impact. I think a lot of people realize it's important, but they don't really realize how much research there is that supports that it truly has a huge impact on kids, on their vocabulary and their empathy and just this whole range of benefits.
Yeah.
But we also have the orientation. In the orientation, we talk to people about how important it is to make that story come to life. And, reading with your kid at home is maybe not going to be the same as reading to a whole classroom. Yeah. And so we kind of prep them on that a little bit. And it really is a beneficial thing for people to come do that. So.
Well, it's just like radio, too. You can't just read something and then try to do that the same way for radio.
Right.
It has to be in a different tone, a different inflection. It has to be maybe with more of a smile on your face. It comes through on air because people don't see you. So yeah, I like that connection.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And you are also not new to Book Nook.
No.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So my mom, when I was younger and she was younger, she did Book Nook. Gosh. She was telling me today it was around 4 or 5 times she did it, and it's through different organizations, each and every other time. And she would pretty much be where I am right now, and just picking out the books to read. And I think she did have kids sometimes, and I remember watching, if not all the episodes, I definitely watched at least one. And there's always some excitement seeing someone you know and love on television. Like you're seeing them, you're like, I know that person. I know her in her pajamas, and her hair's not usually like that. Why is she wearing makeup? And she kind of sounds funny, but no, I don't know. I'm kind of smiling now just thinking about it, because seeing my mom do that kind of thing, it's almost like full circle now. So I'm happy to be in her shoes.
Did you appear on the show as a child, or did you just?
I don't know. Maybe I did. I definitely watched it from afar at least once. Okay. That was the one I really distinctly remember. But I wouldn't doubt it if I was actually there, like watching, in the little kid audience, watching her do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I probably was. Yeah. If not, like, at least once, maybe a few times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, that's very cool, and we're very happy to have you today.
Thanks.
And things have come full circle here, and we are going to let you read some books to the kids who are watching.
Yay.
So what is the first book you're going to read?
So these books I picked out are books that I grew up with. They actually are from the Deutsch library.
Nice.
So I took them from my own little library at home. And the first one I'm going to read is The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. It's one of my favorites. The illustrations are gorgeous, and it's spooky and kooky, but just really cool. So
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, we'll let you get started.
Thanks.
Thanks.
This is The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mom roths out grabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as an uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the Cholgy wood, and burbled as it came. One, two, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Calloo Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. This is Millions of Cats by Wanda Gag. Once upon a time, there was a very old man and a very old woman, and they lived in a nice, clean house which had flowers all around it, except where the door was. But they couldn't be happy because they were so very lonely. "If we only had a cat," sighed the very old woman. "A cat?" asked the very old man. "Yes, a sweet, little, fluffy cat," said the very old woman. "I will get you a cat, my dear," said the very old man. And he set over the hills to look for one. He climbed over the sunny hills. He trudged through the cool valleys. He walked a long, long time, and at last he came to a hill which was quite covered with cats. Cats here, cats there, cats and kittens everywhere. Hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. "Oh," cried the old man joyfully. "Now I can choose the prettiest cat and take it home with me." So he chose one. It was white. But just as he was about to leave, he saw another one, all black and white, and it seemed just as pretty as the first. So he took this one also. But then he saw a fuzzy gray kitten way over here, which was every bit as pretty as the others, so he took it too. And now he saw one way down in a corner, which he thought too lovely to leave, so he took this one too. And just then, over here, the very old man found a kitten, which is black and very beautiful. It would be a shame to leave that one, said the very old man. So he took it. And now, over there, he saw a cat which had brown and yellow stripes like a baby tiger. I simply must take it, cried the very old man. And he did. So it happened that every time the very old man looked up, he saw another cat which was so pretty he could not bear to leave it. And before he knew it, he had chosen them all. And so he went back over the sunny hills and down through the cool valleys to show all his pretty kittens to the very old woman. It was very funny to see those hundreds and thousands and millions and trillions of cats following him. They came to a pond. Mew, mew, we are thirsty, cried the hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. Well, here's a great deal of water, said the very old man. Each cat took a sip of water, and the pond was gone. Mew, mew, now we are hungry, said the hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. There's much grass on the hills, said the very old man. Each cat ate a mouthful of grass, and not a blade was left. Pretty soon, the very old woman saw them coming. My dear, she cried, what are you doing? I asked for one little cat, and what do I see? Cats here, cats there, cats and kittens everywhere. Hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. But we can never feed them all, said the very old woman. They will eat us out of house and home. I never thought of that, said the very old man. What should we do? The very old woman thought for a while, and then she said, I know. We will let the cats decide which one we should keep. Oh, yes, said the very old man, and he called to the cats. Which one of you is the prettiest? I am. I am. No, I am. No, I'm the prettiest. I am. No, I am. I am. I am, cried hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of voices, for each cat thought itself the prettiest. And they began to quarrel. They bit and scratched and clawed each other and made such a great noise that the very old man and the very old woman ran into the house as fast as they could. They did not like such quarreling. But after a while, the noise stopped, and the very old man and the very old woman peeped out the window to see what had happened. They could not see a single cat. I think they must have eaten each other all up, said the very old woman. It's too bad. But look, said the very old man, and he pointed to a bunch of high grass. In it sat one little frightened kitten. They went out and picked it up. It was thin and scraggly. Poor little kitty, said the very old woman. Dear little kitty, said the very old man. How does it happen that you were not eaten up by all of those hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of cats? Oh, I'm just a very homely little cat, said the kitten. So when you asked who was the prettiest, I didn't say anything. So nobody bothered about me. They took the kitten into the house, where the very old woman gave it a warm bath and brushed its fur until it was soft and shiny. Every day, they gave it plenty of milk, and soon it grew nice and plump. "And it is a very pretty cat, after all," said the very old woman. "It is the most beautiful cat in the whole world," said the very old man. "I ought to know, for I've seen hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats, and not one was as pretty as this one." This one is H.A. Ray's Curious George. This is George. He lived in Africa. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. One day, George saw a man. He had on a very large yellow straw hat. The man saw George too. "What a nice little monkey," he thought. "I would like to take him home with me." He put his hat on the ground, and of course, George was curious. He came down from the tree to look at the large yellow hat. The hat had been on the man's head. George thought it would be nice to have it on his own head. He picked it up and put it on. The hat covered George's head. He couldn't see. The man picked him up quickly and popped him into a bag. George was caught. The man with the big yellow hat put George into a little boat, and a sailor rowed them both across the water to a big ship. George was sad, but he was still a little curious. On the big ship, things began to happen. The man took off the bag. George sat on a little stool, and the man said, "George, I'm going to take you to a big zoo in a big city. You will like it there. Now run along and play, but don't get into any trouble." George promised to be good. But it is easy for little monkeys to forget. On the deck, he found some seagulls. He wondered how they could fly. He was very curious. Finally, he had to try. It looked easy, but... Oh, what happened? First this, and then this. Where is George? The sailors looked and looked. At last, they saw him struggling in the water and almost all tired out. "Man overboard!" the sailors cried as they threw him a lifebelt. George caught it and held on. At last, he was safe on board. After a good meal and a good pipe, George felt very tired. He crawled into bed and fell asleep at once. The next morning, the man telephoned the zoo. George watched him. He was fascinated. Then the man went away. George was curious. He wanted to telephone too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What fun. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. George had telephoned the fire station. The firemen rushed to the telephone. "Hello, hello," they said. But there was no answer. Then they looked for the signal on the big map that showed where the telephone call had come from. They didn't know it was George. They thought it was a real fire. Hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen jumped down to the fire engines and on to the hook and ladders. Ding dong, everyone out of the way, hurry, hurry, hurry! The firemen rushed into the house. They opened the door. No fire! Only a naughty little monkey. Oh, catch him! Catch him! They cried. George tried to run away. He almost did, but he caught in the telephone wire. And a thin fireman caught one arm, and a fat fireman caught the other. You fooled the fire department. You fooled the fire department, they said. We'll have to shut you up, or you can't do any more harm. They took him away and shut him in a prison. Poor monkey. George wanted to get out. He climbed up to the window to try the bars. Just then, the watchman came in. He got on the wooden bed to catch George, but he was too big and heavy. The bed tipped up. The watchman fell over, and quick as lightning, George ran out through the open door. He hurried through the building and out onto the roof, and then he was lucky to be a monkey. Out he walked onto the telephone wires, quickly and quietly over the guard's head. George walked away. He was free. Down in the street, outside the prison wall, stood a balloon man. A little girl bought a balloon for her brother. George watched. He was curious again. He felt he must have a bright red balloon. He reached over and tried to help himself. But instead of one balloon, the whole bunch broke loose. In an instant, the wind whisked them all away, and with them went George, holding tight with both hands. Up, up, he sailed higher and higher. The houses looked like toy houses, and the people like dolls. George was frightened. He held on very tight. At first, the wind blew in great gusts, then it quieted. Finally, it stopped blowing altogether. George was very tired. Down, down he went, bump, onto the top of a traffic light. Everyone was surprised. The traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do. And then he heard someone call, "George!" He looked down and saw his friend, the man with the big yellow hat. George was very happy. The man was happy too. George slid down the post, and the man with the big yellow hat put him under his arm. Then he paid the balloon man for all the balloons, and then George and the man climbed into the car, and at last, away they went. To the zoo! What a nice place for George to live. And that is all the time we have for Book Nook today. Join us next week, and make sure to check out these books at your favorite public library. And if you like public broadcasting, stay around for my voice. Check it out there. Have a great day.